Good evening, and welcome to Post-Apoc Horse Talk.
Good evening.
I'm your host,
Welcome to
Gantages.
Post-Apoc Horse Talk.
This is my co-host.
I'm your
Co-host
host, Gantages.
Post-Apoc Horse
Band.
This is my co-host.
I'm your
Co-host
host, Gantages.
Band.
This is my co-host.
Greetings.
I'm your host, Gantages. Band.
Sorry, I got a lot of reverb on my fucking headset there. Sorry, my bad, audience. But let's get right back into it. So before we go on tonight, to avoid cluttering the chat and being expedient later, I have to ask if you want to ask any questions to throw them in the chat, and BG will compile them as they appear. But moving on, our guests tonight, or rather guests, are a couple. They are a duo working on the pen and paper system, Wasteland Ventures, our adventures in FOE, and I'd like to welcome them to the show, SourCherry and Waak.
Hi.
Hello, glad to be here.
Yes, you enjoying your time here already on Post-Apoc Horse Talk, apart from the minor mess up there.
Things always happen.
No worries.
All right, shall we get straight into the meat and potatoes then?
Yeah, let's do that.
So if I remember rightly, Wasteland Ventures recently had a new release. Perhaps you could start off by telling us how long have you two been working on this?
Well, I can say that this particular rule project has been going on for the last 3 years of development. Basically, the first iteration was compiled on February 2017, and the latest release of 2.0 was actually released a month ago.
Yep.
So it's been a long time coming then.
Yeah, and we're both basically starting members of this project. So yeah, 3 years is correct. Waak has been the one in charge of layout and rule making, as have I. But I'm also in charge of art and, for the most part, the lore. Some of the rules as well. I'm also the resident mega bitch from hell, responsible for making sure this rulebook did not die on arrival.
Oh, that's unfair. You're not a mega bitch. You're just a little bitch.
Yes, but basically, and though we're not the only ones doing this, and I'm very thankful for all of you that have been part of this project and continue to be a part of this project. Mixo, if you are watching this, thank you.
Moving on then, if you have nothing more to add.
Sorry.
Well, perhaps could you also expand as to what was your inspiration for doing this particular project? I imagine there is a long and convoluted story behind this, or at least I hope.
Yeah, it's a bit funny because this particular rule project started due to a campaign we co-GM'd for the last 3 years, actually. So, because you originally used KCAT's rules, I was basically the technical GM, and I was in charge of the rules. And as the game progressed, I began to slowly get frustrated on the rules and their pretty much their technicality of it and unfinished nature of them. So it quickly became that house rules were added slowly, and then at that one point it was just okay, I'm just going to start making this from scratch.
Yeah, and with me, it's always been rule books and homeproofs have always been an interest to me, and I've got 2 rulebook attempts under my belt, but neither really went anywhere due to time difficulties. And like Waak said, we started playing with KCAT's rule set, but for us they were a little bit too unfinished. So we began by making our own version in a setting that we found interesting and catchy.
So it was born out of a frustration of incomplete rules, too crunchy, and simply you wanted something simpler and at least finished, at least in
Yeah.
part or in whole.
Pretty much.
Like many of the projects in the FOE fandom, even the games are incomplete.
Mm,
Yeah, for assets of Equestria are still in development in a completely different side project.
yes.
Hmm.
Even ours is still in the. I think. Well, it's under development still. There's always something to improve, something that we missed, perhaps, because our team is nonetheless, the core team is very small. So something's bound to slip.
Well, while we're on this topic,
Mhm.
as you two personally are well aware, I am quite partial to role-playing games. Perhaps you could use this opportunities to sell your project to the audience and tell us what your selling point is, why people should play it over K-Cat derivatives like Dead Tree, High Tide, and Equestrian Vagabonds.
Maybe I could start this time.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I am personally familiar with KCAT system or the Sunrise system, as some might call it. And I have seen some of Dead Tree and High Tides. Vagabonds is new to me, but I like to check it out sometime. I did take a quick gander of it a few days ago. And not to toot my own horn, but I wanted from the very beginning to make a rule book that had a few key points, that it was easy to read, it looked good and professional, and that it was our own creation that we could proudly stand behind and say, I made this. And as far as Wasteland Ventures goes, it's fairly light in rules and math, especially math. So it only started to differentiate really some maybe last year or 1.5 years ago. Once we were sure that we wouldn't be branded as Dashites and immolated by our basically yes.
All
Yeah,
right.
pretty much the system was at least somewhere middle in development. We decided pretty much that the system should be also playable on paper. Hence, pretty much most convoluted math were cut out and made much more simple. Formulas were rethought out, and that's pretty much the technical side. Numbers were also drastically dropped down to one or single digit. One of the major difference is that, for example, the concept of action points in KCAT derivatives and such tend to be somewhere in between 50 and 80, if I recall correctly.
I remember the system. It was usually started like 45 plus your agility times 3.
Yeah.
That could be a wide range of numbers. Like an average person should have, I think it was 75 an average person should have. The best person should have, if I'm not mistaken, 90, I think.
Yeah. And in those systems, cheapest actions tend to be 5 AP, while in Wasteland Ventures, the maximum AP is somewhere between 11 and 15. So the base is 10 AP plus half of your agility, and the cheapest action always costs 1 AP.
Also, to say something about building your own character in Wasteland Ventures is our incoming feature, past or previously attained skill training, which is intended to replace or rather expand on tagged skills which were found on KCAT's version. So it's basically why your character is good at what they are good at, because there's always some training, or maybe you were born to some tribe or something similar.
Insert
Which-
reason for expertise here.
Yeah.
Pretty much. That's an in development feature, so we'll see.
So if I'm gathering this correctly, you're producing a background system for your characters.
A relatively light one. But yes.
A bit more in depth than your traits and tax.
Yeah.
So you heard it here first, folks. Watch this space. A potential new release in the foreseeable future of a background and why you're good at stuff for Wasteland Ventures.
Also, for all the Scrooge McDucks out there, it's also completely free.
Oh, but that should come part and parcel. Like every system should be free, unless you're dead, Tree.
I make no comment on that. I have views on that I think might get crass if I start to expand on.
I mean, I have a good imagination that they're not going to be watching this, and well, I would like to post it in their server, but I doubt I'll be able to get permission.
Yes, moving swiftly along.
Yes. So, another question. Perhaps you could expand a bit more on the differences between them, because people, at least maybe by osmosis, know that the system for the cake and the derivatives from it is a D100 system.
That is correct.
How does yours differ from that, if at all?
It is still, mostly because we're so far along, that changing it would be basically a 100% rewrite. It's also on the D100, but admittedly, we did at some point toy with the idea that it would have been something else. For example, similar to a role-playing game called Praetor, which uses basically D6s. However, speaking of D6s, our game in damage uses D6s instead of D10s, which KCAT's rules that uses. Waak, would you perhaps want to elaborate on this?
Obviously,
Yeah,
you don't need
basically-
to go into detail here. This is mostly an overview.
But yeah, so damage numbers were also dropped down to single digits mostly, and the die size was shifted from D10 to D6 to be a bit more quicker to calculate on a table of setting. HP also got massive change. It starts now also from 10, and it's also in double digits only. You cannot have over 100 HP at all. It's physically impossible in the system.
Also, there's the pushing the limit mechanic, which is basically using your strain. Like in KCAT's setting, strain is basically mana or magic points. But you in our set, damn it. In our system, you can also use strain as to heighten your skill values up to a point. And it's available to every kind of character, no matter if they can or cannot use magic.
Yeah. Also, in addition, in KCAT Triadists, the specials tend to be rolled with D10 and then compared to a skill roll of D100, and then doing some conversion there. In our system, pretty much if you are doing a check, you tend to roll D100 always.
Okay. So you just wanted to simplify comparison between specials and skills,
Mm-hmm.
and damage is notably different, as well as
Mm-hmm.
having an ability to temporarily boost your skills with a stat that previously only Hornheads could use.
Yeah. Mostly because we felt that strain is technically something that should have existed on everyone. I mean, after all, everyone gets fatigued when they're pushing themselves to do more. So why should it be only for those that use magic? Be it Pegasi, Earth Ponies, unicorns, of course, or griffins, changelings. What else? Yaks and Kirins.
Okay, I can see that argument. Perhaps we should move on to the next question, though.
All right.
We'll let the audience come to their own opinions on this. If you have any questions, audience, please feel free to ask them. BG will take note. So, Sour, you're an artist.
Mm-hmm.
I would say of some notable renown within the fandom. In fact, some of your
That's
art has shown up in the slideshow thus far.
Thank you. It's still kind of
You can
weird
slip me
to
some
hear
money
that.
later. Perhaps you could tell us how this has been a boon to your work in Wasteland Ventures, then.
Well, it's safe to say that my art has improved greatly from taking such a big project on my hands, and as well as the Tarot project, because it forces you to adapt and streamline your process. You start to develop certain habits that quicken your work, such as more efficient use of layers, if none less chaotic. And of course, knowing the various chat rooms and Discord channels for Fallout Equestria has meant that I've been able to basically show my art off a little more. It's not just sitting in some dark corner of DeviantArt.
Oh, come now. I'm sure there's plenty of people that appreciate it when it's on DeviantArt and Derpy and such and so forth.
Definitely, yes, but meaning that it has definitely helped my popularity, if I can say it like that.
Yeah, some horn tooting, I would say. I think it's well
Yes.
deserved.
And on that note,
Thank
we
you.
just have an audience question. Starholder asks, what inspired your art style, Sour?
Oh, there's actually multiple people that inspired. Some may find a lot of similarities between Art Nouveau and my style, and Alphonse Mucha, who is perhaps the most known artist of this particular style of painting, has always been someone that I've looked up to. The way his art looks kind of like a painted glass while still having lots of detail and beautiful colors. And my favorite comic book artist, Don Rosa, is definitely a very big influencer on my art. The way Don Rosa has a way of adding little details in 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 his work and backgrounds, even though I rarely do backgrounds, but nonetheless, it's something that I always found appealing to me to find the little details, the little lines, and that just bring the whole thing so much more.
It just makes the whole picture pop.
Yes.
All right, then. Well, now a question for you, then, Wack.
Mhm.
From what I understand, you trained as an IT engineer and you work in ebook management, from what you told me in the past.
Yeah.
Has your background here helped at all in writing Wasteland Ventures?
It It has pretty much, as the IT engineering studies have helped me actually get the layout work done with hardly any issue, because we are not creating the Wasteland Ventures in a Word document and then just converting it to PDF. No, we are using an old document preparation system called LaTeX for this particular use, which allows a bit more control for where the tables and images go on the page, much more than a Word document allows. And because the document preparation system, LaTeX, relies heavily on markup, it's pretty much why the coding experience has helped a ton. In addition, in the earlier studies of the previous studies in math and physics, pretty much makes it go through all the formulas of the rule product, so I can pretty much check if something makes sense. And in also those studies, I went through various various courses where the very concept of writing a scientific document was a key point. So explaining rules, definitions, it's pretty much ingrained in my brain.
So,
for example, if Sour has an idea, a core idea, or anybody else has a core idea, I tend to be the fellow who thinks it through and makes it into a coherent sentence that cannot be taken in other manner of. There's no second guessing what the sentence actually means. I hope that makes some sense, because I'm not that confident of a talk.
so you just you're suggesting
Yeah.
that your understanding of program architecture here has helped you in designing a clean and fresh document.
Pretty much, and also some document writing courses, how to actually write in English to make a bit more professional looking document. That also has helped a ton.
Yeah, plus, concise and unambiguous wording, so that, the players don't waste time second guessing or reinterpreting.
Thank you. Those were the words I was looking for.
Okay. Perhaps another question then, slightly different topic now. While we're on the topic of computers and things of alike, how do you feel about the portrayal of terminals and computing in FOE? As I remember in last episode, it was discussed the Pip-Boy 3 tons and its 64K system simply cannot do the things it suggests in the game.
Yeah, at least it shouldn't be able to do that if it's just using the same materials we, as in normal world, have at hand. It can be explained a little bit that magic is involved, but still, it's I could say that it's still a bit too small of a compartment to house such a powerful machine with just that little memory to sustain itself. It's just however you take it, it sounds like an impossibility to even create a Bitbug 3000 that has all the functions without it being slightly more bulkier. However, suspension of disbelief is a thing, so.
Well, perhaps we got time. We got plenty of time tonight. So, from your experience, let's just ignore the likely, almost impossible thing of VATs, SATs, what have you. Just you're not going to be able to do that. I just don't think that's possible. You can tell me if it is possible, but assuming that's not a feature that you have to account for, how much computing power do you think you'd need to get a pit buck to work or a pit boy to work?
Very good question, honestly. I would say if there would be all the bells and whistles that it currently has, it probably should be more close to your average smartphone at this point. But if it's only for tracking vitals and a handheld radio and pretty much your most basic thing, then it could pretty much run in double of that particular memory requirement or system requirement.
So, could you give a precise number then of how much you think you would need?
I would say somewhere along the lines of 128 kilobytes. Probably, if it's only the most basic stuff the Pitbug has. Everything more a bit more magical in nature or more advanced in nature, it requires a bit more powerful CPU behind it.
Anything you want to add then, BG?
Well, I mean, when it comes to tracking vitals, there already are medical apps for that just go directly on your smartphone. So it's the most sophisticated part is getting that to interface with whatever, needles and probes you've got implanted for that.
Because that is a thought. You would need to stick a needle into them from your wrist-mounted computer to at least get an idea of the person's health, I imagine.
Yeah, you wouldn't need to tap a needle in the wrist to get a heart rate out, which is a good indicator of how stressed you are or how close to death you are, because and also blood pressure as well. Yeah, from that, so
you
can get a lot of.
But it would suggest it knows how much rads you've ingested and whether you're under the effects of poison. That was at least for the poison, they would need to probably take a blood sample.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Pretty much.
And that's the more advanced stuff that requires a bit more CPU behind it. Also, because also in this same particular topic with the Pitbug, it's basically a miniature terminal, and I can see that terminals in Fallout Equestria, if they work similar way they do in Fallout, I can see them working. Because that's a bulky terminal that's just used to access a central server to a specific cable. Pretty much it's an intranet.
Well, it's not impossible to have wireless connections. I'm pretty sure that that's a thing mentioned in both Fallout and Fallout Equestria. They have access to wireless connections, but
with Magic that actually could be true. Yeah. It would be difficult, but possible. But it still won't create the same sort of internet we have in our world. It's just not possible.
Yeah, and calculating power aside, it would also be pretty miraculous if they would have basically a reusable detector for chemicals in your body. Because, even with those, with the medical technology, you have a lot of blood tests that are basically single-use strips that the device reads out with a laser or something. So, yeah, that's just the beginning of your friggin' hurdles.
Please do not ask me to draw that. I do not know how.
It's fine. Nobody's forcing you to draw anything, unless they pay you.
I will.
Get back into your art workshop, slave. I demand arts.
I already demand myself so much.
But yes.
But it will be done.
We're not just trying to analyze pwn magic here, Armix. We're also looking at, the science of the Pip-Boy, rather, the actual Fallout one. Like, at least with magic, you can actually hand wave a lot of the problems away.
Not all of them, but some of them.
Quite a lot of them. Most of them, in fact. Like, the fact it has to weigh like 3 tons to keep you safe from the radiation, which is on your hand, giving your hand ass cancer.
The mental image is just stellar.
But yeah, let's move on to the next question.
Yeah,
we could be here all night arguing about this. We might even bring it up again in the discussion point because everyone seems to have fun with this argument.
But this is the one topic where Sao will be silent.
Yes.
Because she has nothing to add.
I understood nothing of that last 5 minutes.
It's fine.
I'm so sorry, Sour.
And science.
That's how we have some obligatory questions now, because, we have to have them. How did you both get into MLP and then subsequently FOE? Let's start with you, Sour, since you didn't say much in the last moment.
Sure. So I started watching My Little Pony during the end of the first season or beginning of the second, after seeing some memes and images pop up on the internet.
The memes.
Yes. Also, the internet praising it made me interested, as I've always had fondness for animation and good storytelling. Fallout Equestria is actually completely due to Waak, because he introduced me to it and Fallout as well.
Hi.
And yes, you are the one who introduces me to all the bad things in life, and Fallout. So,
did I get that right? You're having some issues with Waak because he's introducing you to all the scary things.
No, not the scary things, the unhealthy ones. I didn't drink coffee before I started dating Waak, for example.
No comment.
But I quickly realized post-apo is, in general, my kind of cup of tea, or coffee in this case.
You also heard it here first, SourCherry, a Finn that doesn't like drinking coffee, or didn't until they met another Finn.
Yes. Before that, it was a sad and lonely time of role-playing on the internet. Dark times that we do not illuminate. It does not exist. Please do not try and look it up.
And the chat is suggesting that Waak drives you to drink.
Yes. I also was an absolutist before meeting Waak.
No
Think
comment.
of that as you will.
Rightio. So moving over to you then, Waak. Perhaps you can shed some light more on this topic and how you got into this whole weird and wacky fandom within a fandom.
Well, like I was saying, I was Fallout fan before I was a Pony fan, and I can say my particular way to get into FOE was that I found it somewhere floating in the internet. I don't recall which, but it was basically a boring day at the university at the time. And I started reading the particle fanfiction, started thinking, what are these characters they're referring to? And from there, I just stumbled upon the MLB wiki, and from there to the show itself, and here we are today.
So it was
how Sour got into my life. It was basically just through mutual group. Sometimes role-playing groups can create a lasting relationship.
Yes.
Yeah, I can believe that. So actually, bringing up that topic, and because role-playing is going to be the next part of this, after there's these obligatory questions, perhaps you could expand on that story.
What?
Could you repeat?
Could you repeat?
So the next part of the this interview is going to go towards role-playing and role-playing experiences. But since you brought it up, you met in a role-playing game. Perhaps you could tell us a bit about that.
Oh, yeah. So it was the role-playing game by a mutual friend of ours.
I wouldn't say it was a mutual friend of me, but it was on my end. It was a friend of a friend that invited also me over to the same event where Sour was. That was our first particular meeting. Yeah, that was our first ever meeting. Yeah.
And to people who might be curious what was played, it was actually the GM's own homebrew game, which was very do whatever you want, we do not mind, just be ready to roll for it. Basically, I remember one time with this setting where we, it wasn't postable, by the way, it was fantasy, where we as a group put together all of our magical ability to summon the great fire of life to burn everything within at least 3 kilometer radius from where we were standing.
Boy.
That was still there.
I don't remember if you were there.
I think that particular moment was not one of those sessions where I was in. But basically, to bring it back to FOE, at that point you basically created the balefire.
Yes. And our GM's reaction at the time was like, okay, roll for it. A very difficult roll, and it succeeded like tremendously well. And boom, everything disappears from like 3 meters in all direction.
You just
except
incinerated all
a
the things.
hand stands from the ashes, and the important NPC that we actually tried to kill rises from the ashes like nothing had happened.
Oh no.
But it was just a fantastic comedic moment to see it happen. Like, no, he didn't die. Also, our GM at the time was and is still very, very innovative person.
Definitely.
Yes, and his games were always a hoot. I remember one of our members tamed boss duck in the sewers and whatever else. Also, there was a walking goldfish.
Lots of things happen in those games because the players were allowed to go wild with imagination.
Yep. Basically, everything was allowed, but you had to be ready to carry the consequences. Also, animals didn't survive if you wanted to have a pet.
So you're suggesting this game was pretty radical and wacky?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, let's take this briefly back to FOE and the FOE fandom.
Yep.
What do you think is the best and the worst aspect of the FOE fandom? I'll take answers from both of you. So let's go with Waak first.
Best. I would definitely say that there definitely are creative people in the fandom, and that's pretty much what I would say is the best part of it, because you can see artists still creating new content even after all these years. And yes, while the story front is a bit more in the smaller side, there are still stories being made in this particular universe that was spawned 8 years ago.
Oh, that's a long time ago.
Yeah. I would even say that's one. And so, but in the same vein, possibly the worst aspect is that it's the sometimes obsession to stick to canon that stifles this particular creativity. Everybody just takes the first written fic as the gospel, and pretty much don't see how to improve from that, plot points aside and plot holes, yeah.
So you think the best part of it is the creativity of the fandom comes up with, part of what you dislike is its puritanicalness to what has been written and sticking to it.
Pretty much. And in the same vein, when more of these larger fics came through and became popular, for example, Project Horizons and ones.
Careful here, Waak.
Well, most notably Project Horizons.
Every time this gets brought up, this ends up causing an argument.
I'm not going to go further into that because all I'm saying is that with bigger fics coming out, the consequent fics have tried to keep, well, at least in the earlier years, tried to keep every single big fic as canon, and that basically narrowed down their path pretty significantly.
I agree to what Waak was saying, because to be honest, I don't think Fallout Equestria is all that different from other fandoms in its core. It's not toxic like some other fandoms, but fandoms are fandoms. They largely work the same way. There are calm, collected fans who respect others, which is and has always been a part that I've been fond of in Fallout Equestria fandom and the My Little Pony fandom. And worst aspect, not being able to keep up with all the awesome content. I'd say, to add to what Waak said.
Okay. I think those are very pretty fair comments. So let's move on to RPGs, because, this is something I could personally sink my teeth into, and I think Beachy can too. What would be your biggest pet peeve in tabletop RPGs, then?
Oh boy.
It wouldn't
Must not rant.
It wouldn't be post-apoc horse talk if it wasn't fucking contentious.
Well, I can say that Saur can continue there, but I will mention that probably what Saur will say relate to the campaign I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast.
Well, I was actually... well, yes and no. Rules lawyers, burn in hell, please. And if we go to D&D, lawful stupid is a thing that should not exist, especially lawful stupid paladins. This, for me, transcends time, space, and characterability. Like, I don't care if my character is a rogue who hates all order, or a Sith Lord, or a goody two-shoes. If they see a lawful stupid paladin, that lawful stupid paladin is stupid and will be murdered. Or at least debated to death. And
So
considering...
You don't
yes,
like paladins that are idiots?
basically, those that follow the law or their code of conduct to
the
T.
Yeah,
Yes.
instead taking the lawful before the good.
Yes. Like people who play lawful neutral characters who are just Judge Dreds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And as mainly a paladin player in D&D, I dislike the stick in the mud approach of just because. Be a stick in the mud when it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
Tell your rogue not to take the poor orphanage's last money.
Well, that'll be the obvious opportunity to break his legs. That'll teach him not to
Yes.
steal the orphanage's last gold piece.
Yes. Also, always keep your eye on the rogue. Always.
That is true.
What if your whole party are rogues?
Well, then it gets difficult because then you have to assign who watches who.
At that point, you just toss the original campaign idea you had out the window and just create a bunch of heist campaigns.
Yes.
Or you just bury all your gold somewhere and don't tell nobody.
They will
That's
find
true.
it. I don't know how, but they will. But in all seriousness, yes, and then there's, well, of course, difficult players are difficult players, but I would like to think that most people can improve. And I've seen in our campaign that Waak mentioned before, we have seen people who have done amazing progress in their role playing. I'm not going to name any names, but it's always good to see also like that side of the thing, especially with very long campaigns like ours was.
Yeah, not everyone enjoys having a campaign where you start off with your characters, being a little more than a stereotype and then evolve them into a much greater person than they started this.
Yes, usually it
Definitely.
goes the other way around, with your party being this awesome group of awesome people, and then it turns into Monty Python pretty fast.
The thing is that
Within
that can be
6
fun.
sessions.
That
Yeah.
can be fun sometimes, turning a party of
Yes,
edgelords into Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
yes,
Not dissing against it. It's just you have to be prepared for it, especially if you as a DM have taken in the character's background and written some story hooks for that, and then suddenly they devolve into the stereotype and wondering, well, this plot hook is now useless.
yes. Get ready to rewrite, rewrite, rewrite. Also, never plan anything to a T.
Definitely.
Be prepared to basically toss everything out of the window if need be.
Oh yeah, that's one pet peeve I actually have is the concept of railroading.
Ah,
Yep.
yes, railroad.
That is, I consider that a much. I don't actually. I consider that a
An
bit of a
egregious sin.
mistake. Yeah, bit of a mistake if you go there, especially if you don't mention to your players beforehand that you have this massive story brand. Also, if your story or campaign can conclude without the input of the players, then why the players are there? This was a case in at least one D&D campaign I was part of. The
And
story was great, yes, but the players didn't have any agency in it. We were just there for the ride to see the DM monologue about how this particular event was happening, like this massive cave just starting to collapse on you and the group, and there's this one love interest of another player characters trapped in a bubble. And every single solution we tried to get past this bubble, dig under, toss something against it, use this spell. Nope. That, when you do that, that is pretty much the ultimate sin, because you are robbing the players from their agency and their contribution to the story as a whole.
yeah, I have nothing to add to that. I was in that same campaign, and that is perhaps one of the two campaigns that I've basically dropped. One of the two, unfortunately, because that person who GM'd it is an amazing storyteller, but that was the point where he should have taken a step back and thought about it a bit more.
Yes, he writes good plot lines, but he wrote them so rigid, our plans didn't fit in that storyline.
Also, when you write potential romance, do it well. Let it flourish little by little. Candlelight dinners, walks in the moonlight, go swimming, see her without makeup. Do some justice kiss or not. something, not just you are an item now. Well, okay.
Now that's kind of that's not fun.
No. Oh, sorry, this got into a bit of a sour note.
No, it's a fine. Every so often, a story will not be a fun one, but it's good.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It's always a learning experience at the very.
Definitely.
So I would like to step in here, and I don't normally like to talk about myself on this show, but at least for me, when I roleplay games, or rather GM the games, because it seems I never get to be a player all that often, this is how I like to do things. I like to roleplay GM with the quantum method.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I'm assuming everyone is at least coincidentally aware of what Schrodinger's cat is.
Yes, the cat is dead and alive at the same time while inside the box. You cannot
from your perspective as the observer. So that's the thing with how I like to roleplay and GM games, is that quiet you. Anyway, things only exist typically when the players can encounter them.
So basically, employing this particular matter that the world exists as a theater, and the players are the actors in the theater, and all the NPCs are other actors that walk in and out of the stage. Pretty much. I can say how that works.
So basically, the only things that exist permanently are things that, for one reason or another, the party are observer to. So if they know of a location that I intended to not be where they were going, then that location will always exist there. So let's say I want the players to go down the road towards the castle of von Finkelstein, because that's where I want the story to go. If I tell them, either by, say, a peasant telling them the castle of von Finkelstein is that way, I can't have them go the other way, or let them go the other. Well, if they want to go the other way, the castle won't appear in front of them.
Because you already established where it is.
Yeah, they are now observer to the castle. They now know where it is via someone else's experiences.
But also at the same time, you should be prepared. I'm sorry. You should be prepared to basically switch locations on the spot. Like, let's say you have this basically unnamed castle, or at least, named but not known location of a castle in, say, west. And your players decide, nope, we are going to go east. Contrary to what you want them to do. Well, boom, that castle is now in the east. Ta-da! You happen to find a mysterious castle.
But it would be, at least in that circumstance, it would be a different castle with the same story.
Definitely different castle, but the event you plan to be in the original castle shifts to that new location.
And the thing is that your players will never ever know what's going on in your head 100%. Like, they can't know whether or not this was planned or not. This also extends partially to resolving stuff too, because I'm sure that both of you have experienced a time when you've planned something, and this is the way in your head that you wanted them to solve this puzzle, but the players come up with a better solution, which you like more.
Oh yes,
Definitely.
Overall, especially in puzzles, like definitely puzzles are the kind that you should never have a definite answer to, because it's almost a guarantee that players will find every other answer except the one that you thought of.
I can say that is true from personal experience.
Same.
So if players come up with a great solution to the puzzle you create, go ahead. It's good storytelling.
The players don't know if that was your intended solution or not, but it doesn't matter.
Indeed. A case in point in one of the campaigns that was basically a mystery campaign in Follow the Equestria world, the setting, was on the contrary, where there was only one solution.
Oh Lord, this campaign.
Only one. Oh yes.
This
only
is
one
sounding like a
solution.
pretty terrible solution. Please go ahead.
Yes. We couldn't come up with it. Like, we thought maybe if we tried to cross this plank by flying. No. Well, teleporting. No. Well, what if I face the beam? No. What if we try to carry each other over? No. Okay, what if I take a running start and leap? No. Well,
Okay, that
you can
seems...
guess how that ends. That ends with us frustrated, having spent probably a few hours of game time thinking about this one puzzle, trying to come up with the one solution that we just can't come up with, and that we either don't understand the hints or they're not coming. Like, no hints as to what was supposed to do. So yeah, this is the one campaign where my character was like, nope, I'm not gonna take this car in the entryway and suicide myself to a wall. I've never done that before, and even that was an experience, because I had to argue with the GM about taking the car and killing myself.
Yeah, because GM had written that there was some solution in the car and he would just not budge and move it elsewhere in this mansion of his. Once more we come to rigid plans.
Yes.
Rigid plans are your worst enemy as a GM, honestly. Just believe me.
I mean, I'm not going to lie.
Consider your plans. Yeah.
I mean, not going to lie, I have an idea in a few of my campaigns of where I want a particular story arc to go, but it's entirely up to the players of whether they want to follow that or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and how they come to that solution.
You know, if they want to go after that particular aspect of the campaign, that particular story that I set them on, they can do so. I don't make them go down that road. It does seem that the GM in that particular instance was kind of forcing you down a pre-prescribed path and would not deviate from it.
Yep. Pretty much. And that's bad, and you should feel bad.
Yeah. I recall there was, in the same campaign, I wasn't part of it, I was just secondhand experiencing it and still getting frustrated. They spent one session full in order to kill one player that was departing.
Also, that session took 4 hours.
Yes. So they spent 4 hours in order to kill one player character. Let that sink in for a while.
Can I answer to Tierney, because there's a question that I would like to answer.
What's the question?
All right. Yeah, please read out the questions, since those won't be visible in the recording.
Sure. So Tierney Kelly asks, "Hey, SourCherry and Waak, remember how I exhausted the two of you so much with my machinations and all the things I wanted to accomplish, to the point that you two wanted to prematurely
end the game, yeah.
End the game." Yes, I do remember, and my God, Tierney, never ever do that again.
Let me also add, Tierney, that you weren't the only reason for that particular frustration.
Yes. like, don't feel it wasn't all you. It was
a combination of things,
yes.
Anyway, can we move on?
Tierney, do not smile over there. I can see it.
All right, then. We've gone down that rabbit hole quite considerably. I think we've gone long beyond what was your biggest pet peeve in RPGs.
Sorry.
Pretty much.
Sorry. This is something of a thing that is close to my heart.
Let's show it's a personal hobby.
Well, this is all about learning about you, obviously, so this is a good insight. But the next question, do you happen to have a particularly humorous story of a game of Wasteland Ventures or in another system?
Well,
Oh boy.
Let me start, because I have one very great one that I still remember with fondness.
Is that
Is
that a very recent one, perhaps?
Well, it's a year or so old, and it's in the campaign that Tierney is speaking about. And it was in the setting where many factions on that campaign was set on an island with various factions like Steel Rangers and ghouls that were actually kind of like guerrilla fighters and whatnot. Well, matters not. But basically, they were coming to peace talks to resolve what had been a 100-year-old war at that point. Peace talks go nowhere. Like, no, just people are disagreeing and no one is really into their same mind. So the players step outside and they see the sky get darker as wait, what was the song that started to play just
Ride of the Valkyries.
Ride of the Valkyries starts to play on Roll20, and they go like, what's coming? What is this? What the hell is this? In comes an army of flying mole rats armed with bombs. And they
Minion
nukes.
Minion nukes, to be exact.
Yes.
And they fly over their location to a particular town they were in a bit of a bad blood with, and this particular town gets properly bombed to smithereens.
Obliterated off the map. And just the player's reaction to it, like, what? What?
What?
What are these? Why are they flying? What are those mechanical wings? Yes. What? And Ride of the Valkyries is what? Yes. And Ride of the Valkyries was just like cherry on top. And no pun intended.
And I recall another funny story, and it was basically in a test campaign when we were fleshing out rules. We had just recently created the diamond crystal ponies, and they had this one particular perk where they could damage opponents that was dependent on their unarmed skill. Well, we had one nice little munchkin in our group, and he basically made the most unarmed crystal pony in the world with that particular perk.
Hey,
Turns out,
I'm a munchkin man.
well, it was good because he showed how broken that particular perk was. Because every time in this campaign, when a robot enemy even attempted to hit him, hence word attempt, he would only get like one damage or something like that, and the robot would disintegrate because it would run itself to their shards of the crystal pony's hide.
Oh no!
It's like boop, cease to exist.
Yeah, we pretty much laughed that this is so broken and
Robot.
Long story short,
stop working.
Pretty much. Long story short, we just nerfed that particular perk to the bit more reasonable in damage, no longer dependent on unarmed skill.
Also, if any of you ever make a rule book of your own and get to the phase where you get to test play, have a munchkin, have a min-maxer, have someone who wants to abuse your rule set.
Yes,
Basically.
because they find the most egregious errors in your system and point it out pretty clearly to you.
Case in point being disintegrating robots when
Without
just,
even moving.
yes.
It sounds delightful.
It was.
Playtesting is fun.
Yes, it's the part where you get to kind of laugh and go like, oh yeah, that didn't go like we planned.
All right. Do you have a story that you want to add then, Waak, while we're here?
Any other story? No. Question mark?
Perhaps you'd want to share that story that happened recently in a game that we all happen to be in.
Which part of it?
You
Was
know
it the
the bit,
latest session?
Not
Was
the
this
latest session. Not the latest
Ah.
one. I think it was like 2
Oh yeah.
sessions ago.
Oh yeah. When you were forced to leave a station.
That was the one.
All right.
That was the one.
Yeah. So basically, the group that has been roaming in the metro and was given a task to fetch a particular box from a particular station finally reached this station and the merchant who holds the box. Turns out this particular merchant is an Abyssinian with, let's say he was lazy.
He was an ass cat.
He was an ass cat, yes, because he pretty much wanted to barter every single item he had in his shop, and this included also the box. And pretty much insisted that the box was not paid for, or actually no. He
wanted.
He asked for some processing fees in order to hand the box to you. Just and one of the groups just said, "Okay, here's the caps." While then afterward, later, the group managed to then scare the merchant, pretty much shitless, and give the caps back.
Yes, and I want to note at this point, this was done without having to cause any property damage.
But thing is, Sour's character, a Kirin with a particular affinition to stones, was pretty much annoyed at this particular cat, and when you walked out, but pretty much with the this part of the quest done, and without any kind of damage or any kind of loss of reputation, the Kirin pretty much decides to then rip parts of the platform in the form of a stone and toss the stone at the merchant's shop, which was, by the way, a disused metro car.
With a nice big neon sign on top of it.
Neon sign on top of it, correct. And Sour had a crit success.
Yep.
So it turns out this particular stone then managed to penetrate the metro car's wall and trash the inside to pretty much a wall zone. And on top of it, the neon sign was then just ungracefully detached from the metro car and then fell in front of the store's door.
We can never go back there.
You
can say the reaction from the station guard was pretty much a given at that point.
It was to be expected.
Yes.
So the next 2 minutes, the entire group then tried to just head to the nearest exit of the station and head to the tunnels while being chased by this local guard all the way to a nearby raider settlement, which they then sneak through.
Yes, because we had to do the quick step out of that station.
Yes, we didn't run, we speed walked out to be least suspecting looking persons there. It didn't help.
Yeah, that was a fun story.
That was fun. It was when you succeed so good, it's a bad. It's quite funny sometimes.
And honestly, at that point, you can just blame one character in particular
Me?
for the reason to fight,
don't-
because you had done your quest at that point, then
We're not going to blame them because, it was in character and it was funny.
yes, it was funny.
Also, I seemingly had to have my moment of murder hoboing out of my system. Apparently.
It's a learning experience. Learn over next time.
Indeed.
Oy, oy, oy.
Also, I love that boulder making spell, Rolling Stone.
Papa was a rolling stone and he smashed a rail car like it was his own.
Mhm.
God damn it.
Oh, pardon. Sorry, I'm
No
slowly
worries.
killing myself.
Oh, me
Please
too.
don't. I need you in the game.
Me too.
So,
Who else will I ship with?
this suddenly
Yes.
got awkward.
Yes,
Oh,
please go
carry
on.
So, final question before we go off for a short commercial break. Let's start a flame war in our absence while we go on break. What is the most contentious question that we've had to date? Who is
Oh, no.
best pony in any FOE work?
Waak, take the hit.
I'm going to take the rather unorthodox opinion and say that it would be Derby Hill.
Oh,
I mean, that's
The OG ghoul who actually managed to keep Little Beep on pretty much on track and help her all the way through, and also single-handedly took down a few raptors with Sonic Rat Boom. And yes, also the originator of Sonic Rat Boom, by the way.
Yes, but that was an uncontentious answer. Why can't you have a contentious answer, Wack?
of course not.
I'm old, that's why.
I'm going to go with a much more contentious answer. I'm going to go with Serenity from FOE Heroes.
I actually haven't read that. But mine would be... well, actually, I have three. There's hard copy from Kendall Kun's Waking the Dead, who is just... I like cool characters. They're nice. I mean, not necessarily nice people, except hard copy. Hard copy is, but there's something so fun about them. And then there's badassery in the form of steel hooves, and as you can see, again a ghoul. And Marky number 7 from Marky number 7, because he's just oh my god, adorableness cannot be contained.
I mean, if I was going to go with best character in Murky number 7, I'm actually not going to go with Murky. I was going to go with what was her name? Glimglam. Everyone calls her Glimglam.
Yes. Also, what was the name of the raider in Murky number 7?
There are a lot of raiders in Murky number 7.
the team member. The red, big red.
Brimstone?
Brimstone, yeah, they're Brimstone.
Brimstone. Just, oh my fucking god. That pony is amazing. Like, that's the pony I would want in my team if I were in the FOE world. And especially in Philadelphia.
He's not good boy, but he's good boy.
Yes. He's good evil boy.
Yes. He is bad guy, but he's not bad guy.
Yes.
But let's move on to our first commercial break. I'd like to show you all an advert for Sparkle Cola, our sponsor for this half of the show. We'll be back shortly after this commercial message.
There's a reason Sparkle Cola has remained Equestria's most popular beverage since it was first introduced to the public. Not just its refreshing taste, but also because Sparkle Cola uses only the finest equestrian ingredients. And we add just the faintest hint of magic for that refined flavor you can only get from an ice-cold Sparkle Cola. Because we're a company you can trust, ran by real equestrians, you can be sure that Sparkle Cola's spectacular taste just can't be beat. And for every Sparkle Cola you buy, 1 bit goes to supporting our mares and stallions in uniform. So sit back and enjoy the great equestrian taste of Sparkle Cola. Sparkle Cola. What you want is a spark.
All right, we're back, and welcome to our next segment, Lore and Discussion, same as every other week. So let's begin with our first topic of the night, while everybody's here. Well, this is actually something that's brought up in your system somewhat. So,
Really?
non-pony races and magic. Are
None.
non-pony races able to do magic? How do they interact with it? Is there anything known as natural magic? Or is it just innate ability that just seems to be semi-magical in nature?
Well, you've gone to the right place because I would love to answer that.
Go ahead.
Basically, there are other races that can use magic. Most of them are pony-like, at least, like earth ponies, Pegasi, unicorns, crystal ponies. Changelings are kind of, are they or are they not? But basically, then there are the yaks and Kirins. Yaks have something of might be magic, might be something else, power of awesomeness and metal, basically. Because yaks in our system use chants. They're basically metal, like heavy metal parts.
Okay, I already love the sound
Yeah.
of them already.
Basically, they deal long-lasting buffs by basically having a concert of sorts. Oh, of course, zebras also have their own version of magic.
Yeah, the spirit magic is still a zebra thing, but also buffaloes gain access to it. So buffaloes can also dabble with the spirits of the world
Yes.
through talismans or runes, or just basically summoning them and trapping them to specific spirit persons. In addition, the Abyssinians also have a bit of a magic, but they require this catalyst to channel their magic to be more effective. This was taken from it was Katrina from the earlier was it called Katrina? The
Katrina, yes.
Yes.
From generation 1 or 2, I think 1.
yeah, she was an inspiration for this particular type of using magic.
And basically we wanted to make different kinds of magic. For example, earth ponies have magic of their own that focuses a lot on themselves. That sounds selfish, but it's more like taking power from the soil and earth around you and turning it into a power for yourself, basically becoming self-buffs and the like. While unicorns are more like wizards.
Yeah.
The kind of all kinds of spells.
Like conventional magic.
Yes, conventional magic. Changelings are currently going something of rewrite in their magic, but essentially they have both some of unicorn magic and their own magic, which focuses on misdirection,
Illusions and such.
illusions,
Shape-shifting and
Mimicry,
pretty much
things like that.
yeah, definitely.
yes. We wanted to make spells that would fit them the most. Like if you were a changeling who had to do these things to survive, what kind of spells would be useful for them?
Okay, I can see that. My only experience on this topic comes from the systems that I've worked on, High Tides and Equestrian Vagabonds. And how they have done it is that, once again, unicorns are very much conventional magic users, as you would expect.
Definitely.
Changelings have their own innate spells that basically allow them to shapeshift, but also like that beam that Chrysalis used in that one episode. That's a spell they also have, and they also have harden their spell that hardens their chitin, which gives them natural protection. When it comes to other races and more subtle forms of magic, Zebes, once again, they do have their shamanism, and it's mostly just invoking the spirits to give them temporary buffs, or basically force them into giving them temporary buffs. When I say temporary, I mean in the sense that they will go away eventually, rather than it being very short term. Next is I will ask you to please keep your yelling to a minimum in the chat, please. Buffalo also get shamanism, but they also dabble in stuff like item crafting for magic. So they can have objects that can hold spirits without the spirit trying to get out. So basically it crafts them a home that they're willing to stay in for as long as their agreement is made. And they also have totems as well. Totems that can basically give effects to everyone in a distance around them.
So it'd be a bit more dabbling with the World of Warcraft shaman things like that.
Kind of. I'm not a big fan of all the heavy references to World of Warcraft, because frankly I don't think that's all that fun, copying other systems verbatim.
Yeah, it's good to take references from here and there and just shift a bit more to make them unique,
We also have worked on their natural magic of basically Buffalo can influence people via their dreams. So Buffalo shamans that can passively enter into the minds of others in their dreams and help them either have a good dream, have a bad dream, and pass on benefits to them.
Interesting.
Basically, you can use it as if someone's addicted, role-playing wise, this will be a perfect way to help them handle their addiction. Go into their dreams where you can alter time and allow them to work through their addiction. That would be a way you could facilitate this. There's not huge amounts of buffs as written, but I hope and trust that a GM will have the intuition to use this to that kind of effect.
And the players as well.
Of course.
Other
forms of magic.
Kirins in our system have elemental magic.
Yes.
So basically, they are a bit like unicorns in that the spells are conventional, but they're tied to an element. The classic fire, water, earth, and air. So, but we try to make them as versatile as possible. So they have buffs, they have damage dealing spells, they have debuffs and stuff like that. Especially Rolling Stone, my favorite. Oh,
I
freaking
wonder why.
To whom it may concern, have a rock.
Yes. My Kirin is an earthbender.
Though speaking of Kirin's, I don't like talking about myself and my work on this show. This is about you guys, typically.
All right.
Typically.
What we intend to do on Equestrian Vagabonds is that we intend to have Kirin's playing the game, and much like Wasteland Ventures, they have conventional magic, but they also have an affinity for elemental magic. Basically, it makes it much easier for them to learn other versions of elemental magic and can learn without teachers and such, as well as get better versions without teachers. Because typically, the way you get magic in Equestrian Vagabonds is you have to learn it from someone else.
Makes sense. Basically, everyone's a wizard. In a sense.
In a sense, yes.
Also, something that I think even Waak doesn't know, because this has been something that I've very, very slowly cooked in my mind, talking to a certain police pony, Griffin, police person, is actually maybe having eventually years in the future, maybe depending, a campaign setting on, or rather a campaign book on zebra side of things, with new races possibly. And what made my caught my eye was a certain race of centaurs, basically Lord Tirek. Because god damn it, I want that magic thingamagic that he does into the game. One way or another, I will have rules for it. I will create at least something, and what came to our minds was that basically centaurs could absorb magic and store it and use it later. Basically like they're basically like walking wands from D&D.
Also, I see the question that, Nexus of Conqueror. When is the C book coming? I can answer that the time when it's coming is soon in Valve time. I'm sorry.
Yes. This has only been something that I have been cooking up, but there are other things that need to be done first. For example, the GM manual.
Yes, we have priorities, and this is a bit more slower than this. I'm sorry about that.
All right. Well, I think we somewhat have exhausted that question to an extent.
I could say so.
So, next question. Actually, I don't think we can answer that question because of how Nexus asks that question. So I'm going to move past that one and pick another one. All right, that will be. It's a rather minor question, I'd argue. Does Sparkle Cola Red glow, and if so, what color? And an expansion of this question: should there be other flavors of Sparkle Cola? You know, the Nuka World expansion, as it were.
Yes, there should be other flavors. It makes sense, and considering well, real world flavor testing and so on. Yes, there would be other flavors in our game. There's, I think, vanilla and cherry flavors, because of course there is.
I
Cherry, of course there is.
Big thunk.
big thing it is. And I just checked that yes, there is Sparkle Cola Cherry and Sparkle Cola Vanilla in our rules, along with Sparkle Cola Rad. But to answer the question, what color does it glow? Well,
I don't remember ever mentioning that it glows or not, because it's obvious that it's a reference to Quantum, and Quantum glows bright blue. But
definitely.
it's never said if Sparkle Cola Rad glows, and if so, what color.
Honestly, considering that Rad is made with radish, which is either white or purplish pink, I would say pink because it's very My Little Pony-ish.
I would actually go with the same conclusion because it actually is then a bit more eye-catchy in a store shelf than a white.
So it would look a bit like a Nuka-Cola Victory then.
Kinda, but think of a more vivid pink, like hot pink color that's really like,
I mean,
you want this.
after all, we are talking about pastel color horses here.
Everything's colored in pastel-colored horseland.
Yes. I mean, it has to, when you see that bottle on the shelf, it should make you think of Pinkie Pie. And then you take it and you drink it and you realize it does not taste like Pinkie Pie.
The Ministry of Morale would like to tell me now that Pinkie Pie has not got a hand in using Sparkle Cola as a means of spying on the population. Any coincidental instance of this is simply a coincidence and you are paranoid. Please go back to your business. We are not going to spy on you with our Sparkle Cola bots.
Thank you, citizen, and have a good day.
So, what other flavors could you realistically think would be there?
I'm surprised there isn't a version of orange.
Or apple.
Yeah, why did they choose fruit flavor, seeing as, they chose carrot for original Sparkle Cola as the flavor, and then radish for the Quantum alike.
Also for the pun.
I
but
suppose.
also I would, yeah.
I said I suppose, but please go on.
Yeah, also I would say that if we're going to take, if you're going to consider later seasons as canon, probably Sap Apples as well, but that's a bit of a murky topic.
Yeah, that if we're going to talk about Zap Apples, it's a fruit that only flowers once every few years for 20 minutes.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
I mean, if they
you cannot build a business model around this fucking fruit.
Yeah, it would be the most expensive type of beverage in the land.
Yeah, and considering that it grows in one place.
Oh yeah, this is like fucking civet coffee, cordyceps tea, and fucking truffles all rolled into one, and could only be grabbed in one specific place for 20 minutes every so years. That's how rare we're talking about this fucking fruit.
Mm-hmm. It could be a limited edition.
Definitely a limited edition
is an understatement. More like we'll never sell this again edition.
I actually see that there's a question from Tierney. Y'all gonna have breezes? I take it as a race, and the answer is I don't think so. Mostly because they're difficult to balance in regards of rules. They're so small that hitting them with any kind of weapon would be basically pointless. And they would have such small HP pools that anything that actually did manage to hit them would probably kill them outright. I mean,
Well,
a 9mm bullet to a breezy would be like getting shot with an elephant gun.
Plus, not to even mention any sort of explosives with even the slightest minor damage at AoE.
Yes.
So this actually brings up a thought that I did in a previous game on how to do breezies. So the way I did it, now this isn't in Equestrian Vagabonds, which I don't think it ever will be, is what we did is we had them, how can I best put this? They took control of bodies.
Interesting.
By basically, eating the brain or bits of the brain and just taking command of it.
Parasites. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, so basically the way you could do it, potentially, is that a breezy needs a body, and they'll eat chunks of a host brain to take control of it, and they will use the body as the means of protecting themselves.
Okay, so I think we have a new addition to the mutant manual.
Quite. We already have moss fungus that basically infects hay and basically take over corpses, because that's fun and nice and neat.
The way I also did this is that breezies are portrayed not as a hive creature, but go down round in swarms.
Yep.
Basically, they just burrow their homes into the body.
I imagined that. Thank you. I will not sleep tonight. Thank you.
Good old butterflies.
Yes. Yeah. Please go home with that tonight, guys, and think of holes.
Also, we got another question. What is the Z book coming soon going to cover as far as world building is concerned?
I think it would go to a bit more detail on
if I may
what is
interject, I would suggest keeping these questions for the Q&A section at the end at this point.
Oh, yes, of course.
Could you then write that down, BG? Because that's
yes, I have it on my screen. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Though speaking of which, any more questions, please direct them to BG. He will take note of them and we'll answer them in the end of the podcast. Sorry about that, Nexus, but let's move forward then. Where were we?
Hold on.
Brain boring.
You were talking about cola.
Breezes?
Yes.
Yeah, we were talking about cola
Yes.
and then we went to breezes.
Yes. Fuck it. I will try and find another topic then. To fill the gap, because, this has gone off the rails a little bit today. Stable tech, good or bad?
Definitely. Well, stable tech is... it's a bit of a neutral in the way that, unlike Vault-Tech, which is like evil incarnate in the Fallout verse, stable tech had less evil plans,
I would
fuck
go so
everything
bold as
up
to say they didn't have evil plans at all. They had good intentions and actually intended to save lives first and foremost. They just had that one stable, which was designed as a fuck you to everyone who caused this horrible, horrible, calamitous war.
Yep. And on that front, I would like to say that it would have been interesting to see what kind of interpolitics were in stable tech. Kind of like how in the K-Cat's Fake, the Ministry of Wartime Technology was an absolute fuckfest in regards of scheming and backstabbing and Applejack, you're starting to get a little bit old for this. bullshit.
Yeah, there definitely was some politicking going on within Minister of Wartime Technology, and eventually
Yeah.
leading to an attempted assassination of Applejack.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
the way I'm seeing about that is obviously Blackjack was way too honest for that work. That was the whole point. She was too honest for the work. Either she had to abandon her principles and her scruples and do the job, or she didn't. And ultimately she didn't.
Yeah.
But going on to stable tech, I think the reason why there wouldn't be much politicking in stable tech is that it would all involve people who are just employees, really, of stable tech, which are because stable tech is a company owned three ways by the Cutie Mark Crusaders, and they just they never struck me as characters that ever had any kind of interpersonal conflict, really.
yeah, so no factions within the company would form, except between probably some design divisions or something like that. But those are so far down, they won't escalate further up the company hierarchy.
And at the end of the day, this is pretty much like the ministries are actual government bodies, and government bodies naturally form factions in them. This is a company.
Mm-hmm.
Companies, it's a lot harder for them to form factions within the company because, well,
Have you ever been in women-led companies? I mean, like where majority of the workers are women.
yes, I work in retail.
ClickUs, yes. It happens in companies too. Don't worry
Oh
about
yeah,
that.
but the thing is that from what I've been able to experience, again, this is just my experience here. So again, I can be wrong on this. When it comes to factions in our work, the factions don't do very much. It's mostly just like little cliques of people who just talk to each other more than anything else.
Bitching and backstabbing.
Like I'd say, for example, in an IT company, you're going to have people who have their precious baby pet projects, and you'll be surprised how spirited they can be about defending those from new ideas.
Definitely.
Indeed.
Maybe I've just not been in the right industries to have seen this.
It could be.
Perhaps.
I mean, the only factions that I ever saw that ever were any hostile to each other were shift-based when I was in retail. So basically, the day shift hated the night shift, the afternoon shift hated the day shift, and the evening shift hated the afternoon shift. And all of them hated management.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
There's
always the fuck the management.
But to get back to
universe.
The original question, I'd say, stable tech per se wasn't evil, but as you can see in the show, ponies are incredibly socially and intellectually inept, and they manage to find ways to cause conflict just because they're silly and dumb, and that's why we love them.
Also, imagine someone like Cozy Glow.
Oh no.
In stable tech.
Oh no. Let's not
because
even,
that's
not even indulge
a thing
that particular topic.
that I would like to see. Actually.
So one thought that came up.
Yes.
If Scootaloo was intending to kill all the people who had caused all these problems for Equestria in the war, that would basically mean everyone on Ministry Row.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Who was on Ministry Row at the end of days? Just a FYI. Rarity was there. Fluttershy was there.
Yep.
Who else was there, guys? Just remind me.
I think Twilight's mom was also there.
No, she was in Maripodi.
Oh, was it?
So
because the whole oops goddess oops that's of imp.
Main one here is Rarity. So if I'm not understanding this correctly, from all the interviews that were done, all of the interviews were done with all three of the QTMR Crusaders there, either listening to them afterwards or there doing the recordings. Doesn't that mean that Scootaloo intended to murder Rarity?
I don't actually think so, because Scootaloo's original plan was that that particular stable one, I think, would not open until the last one of the original ponies that went in was dead. That doesn't mean that they were going to be murdered. That just meant that it would not be opened until there's another generation of ponies. And the first generation of stable ponies is dead. Basically, it could be 100 years from now, from when the stable door went closed, when the last one decides to kick the bucket out of old age.
I don't know. I'm not sure how Sweetie Belle would have gone along with all that.
Still, yes. Which is why I think Scootaloo probably kept it a secret. Kind of like, hey, your sisters might be in there.
But don't you think that Sweetie Belle would have noticed that, we've done all the tapes for all of the overmares and stallions of all the stables except one. Stable 1. Where's that one? Scootaloo, did you do that? Don't you think that she would have looked into that and, found out, sweet goddesses, what the fuck have you been up to, Scootaloo?
Yeah. But, sometimes you do have to give a story a kind of, a leeway.
Yeah, I grant that, but this is just a thought that popped into my head.
Mm-hmm.
And, and also the intent to kill, like, obviously Applejack would have been on Ministry Row, or at least they intended to have her on Ministry Row. Like, that's where she's supposed to be. So that also means that Applebloom's sister, Applejack, was intended to be in that stable too.
Mm-hmm.
So Scootaloo conspired to also to kill Rainbow Dash too, or basically lock them away inside that stable. So she conspired to kill all of the people that raised her.
Rather blamed them for the war, which, to be honest, was kind of spot on.
But then
not out of malice.
But then she also tried to help Rainbow Dash after the bombs.
Mm-hmm.
So how am I dismantling this? I shouldn't be able to dismantle this.
Well, there is a chance that what if Scootaloo was trying to keep the main 6 out of Minister Row for basically like, no, I've had a spot and maybe like, I don't know, a teleporter or something bullshit insert here, so you can get the stable too, because Ponyville, yay.
I know,
but yes, it's
know,
a plot hole.
It's plot holes, and plot holes happen. I'm just saying.
Also, I'm sorry, but I do have to leave now because I have work at 6 a.m. and it's getting like half past 11.
It's
and
fine. We've had fun
unless someone, thank you, but except unless one of you comes up with a good excuse for me to skip work.
Waak, this is your job.
We'll make it an audience activity.
It is, but I don't want to come up with anything at this moment. I mean, you cannot have every single, not that going that sick that often. What was your last sick day? Honestly. Anyway.
Last week?
Yeah, that raises eyebrows.
Yes. Okay, yeah, but I'm going to be off. Thank you for having me, and Waak, of course. But maybe I'll see you again in this
It's
podcast.
soon. Probably sometime soon.
Yes.
But yes, everyone say goodbye to SourCherry, who unfortunately has to leave us early.
Yes. Thank you for having me here, and bye.
Ciao.
All right, let's move on to the next question with that unfortunate turn of events.
Yeah, let's go on. Yep.
9. Interesting topic. Necromancy and the Wasteland. How does it work and who can do it?
Necromancy. That's interesting. I would say that definitely those who can do necromancy would be zebras, definitely, because they're dabbling in spirit magic and spirits can do some evil things. And in conjunction, buffaloes could then probably do the same thing. Unicorns who are dabbled into dark arts like Sombra did can also do the same. But that's a bit that really ask for a lot of research on the unicorn to get to that necromantic energy.
Well, it is also mentioned in FOE that Balefire is necromantic in nature, and so is Pink Cloud.
Yep, and because they were created by zebras, it also enforces the point. I do know that the original Megaspell was created by Fluttershy. But
which
then
was that also that was a kind of a form of necromancy, don't you think?
It's basically a massive healing spell.
Yes, but it also brought people back from the dead. It literally raised up people who were, deceased, if I'm not mistaken.
Good point.
Like even people who had steel hooves, who were literally chopped in half at the waist.
I forgot a little tiny detail, but that then pretty much enforces the fact that some unicorns might also be might also find a way to then dabble into necromantic energy without succumbing to that darkness. That's what it just probably then is just how they use necromancy to their needs.
Well, actually, this is a bring up a question that I wanted to bring up about necromancy. So, everybody knows that a device was detonated inside of Lunar School for Gifted Unicorns inside Crescent Valley.
Yep.
It was a necromantic device because it was Pink Cloud, or Pink Cloud, at least.
Possibly, yeah. Possibly a earlier version of Pink Cloud, seeing how it works in small, or actually how it works in real environment, and then they further improved it for Casual Strike.
It does lead me to question quite what did they do to make that? Like, how could they make that? Like, it's not really explained.
Yeah, because it is a very odd combination of it. I know where it's from. I know which the Pink Cloud refers to. It is basically the Red Mist from Dead Money DLC of New Vegas, but how it is created. Considering it's that zebras are truly dabble in magic, possibly they might have a. Sour just ran into the room and just shouted that Krogar dabbles in necromancy. You cannot keep
Sour,
Sour
go
off
to
of there.
bed. You're supposed to be in bed. We're talking here about horses.
Anyway. Yeah.
Blood spirits?
Good
Maybe?
to see that the pink cloud is possibly made with some sort of a deal with Spirit of Poisons as Spirit of Poison also. At least in the Wasteland Venture system, also dabbles in all kinds of poisonous gases. Who doesn't love mustard gas?
Yeah. Well, the way I've handled it before in another game that I ran is that pink cloud is a naturally forming substance. It's well, I say it's a naturally forming substance. Basically, the first usages would leave residue that would become rocks and then get over time get buried through burial and lithification. And you can then recover this stuff and can be used to do more damage again. Like a whole plot point in the campaign was that a Wasteland faction was looking to gather up this particular essence and stone and make bullets out of it.
That would be a very effective bullet then. Basically, immediately, even if it was a grazing wound, it potentially can do a lot of damage afterwards.
Oh yeah, and the fact is, if it punches through your body, it will basically seal the wound up around it.
While leaving a sort of a cavity within you. That's
yes. Well, with a cavity that will continue to be full of poison.
So from the outside you look perfectly fine, while from the inside you're slowly dying.
Oh yeah,
what
basically
a lovely
you're
weapon.
slowly turning into a Canterlot ghoul.
And the body has a hard time removing that poison since the channel through which it entered is also sealed off, so you can't exactly press that out and quickly apply antitoxin.
Basically, you would need some pretty quick-acting surgeon to basically just pull the damn thing out, and then just douse the area heavily in healing potion.
And I see that's a valid point.
So that's what I did with it. It's a semi-natural forming substance that, with the right magic, can be made into bombs again. And that a faction tried to use it to make, personalized projectile weapons with it.
Yeah, that's sorry, I don't have anything to add. I'm pretty much exhausted.
But let's go back to more a general point about necromancy. So are you suggesting that most individuals could do it, or just mostly individuals that have some sort of more overt connection to magic?
I would say those that have more direct connection to the arcane side. Earth ponies, you really need some sort of a conduit in between. You cannot just go there. And so in this case, unicorns and zebras drew their spirits, and in this other case, then Abyssinians would then be able to dabble into arcane with ease.
Well, this actually brings up a more greater point about black magic in general. Should it exist in the system? Do you think things like blood magic? Well, blood magic does exist, but we never really saw the extent of how it exists.
Well, there's a precedent on it for existing mostly due to some shenanigans. Well, not in the way of blood magic, but basically in the more nefarious arcane spells he leaves behind wherever he touches, pretty much, And I'm not talking about the stairs. That is not a nefarious plan.
No, that's a very complicated illusion more than anything else. Or just, gravity manipulation.
More talking about the dark crystals that pretty much inhibit the user's innate magic abilities, and also the door that shows you your darkest sphere. Those are pretty nasty when just flinged at your opponent. So I could say that there pretty much is a place for it, though it is not well documented because after all it has a negative connotation for its use. Ergo, if you really want to use it, you have to go a long trek to find either a pony who already dabbles in state magic, which might be hard because they might not be so receptive to you or willingly share their secrets, or you have to find a piece of forbidden knowledge hidden somewhere for years.
All right. Well, actually, this brings on to me the next question that I've scheduled in. Unusual magic in FOE. At what point does unusual magic become Mary Sue-ish? Is another extension to that point.
Now becomes a good defining question. What could be classified as unusual magic? I mean, massive telekinetic powers wouldn't pretty much. I wouldn't say Little Whip's telekinetic powers are unusual magic.
Yeah, basically using a conventional spell or ability to do something that was outside of its remit of expected effect.
That's a good question. I would say that don't really see when this magic becomes too Mary Sue-ish, because magic tends to not have any limits, at least in FOE. Except in the case of Little Bit, because Little Bit has pretty much that one key point that she can only do telekinetic magic, and that's her limit.
So another example would be, say, another instance of telekinesis is being able to say really, really fine manipulation. To the point where, say, you're picking up single grains of sand, pulling out a screw from inside someone's gun, things like that.
Like pinpoint accuracy telekinesis. I could say at that point that goes a bit too far, because then you're trying to manipulate something so tiny and possibly at range. You cannot see the actual target, so it's wondering what you're dabbling. Unless you have the entire schematic in your head to the point of every single bolt and not in this.
So
then,
carry on.
Yeah, unless you have pretty much all the schematic in your head, and even that is a bit of a stretch considering the limited capability of memory in the brain, and so that is a bit of a stretch, I would say. Yeah. Now that you mention it.
I can see your argument there, that somehow...
I mean, even if magic is a good tool to overcome pretty much anything, you are still limited by your senses, as in your normal senses. Even if you can see, there's a figure over yonder, you can only see the outline. You do not see the specific parts of it. You cannot pretty much determine if it's friendly or not. And you can definitely see from a kilometer away, for example, what they are wearing, and you cannot see. Yeah, you cannot see details at that long of a distance.
I don't think I've actually got much else to add to that. Yeah. It's mostly like extreme examples. So you generally think that extreme examples of an ability done beyond what was intended is not exactly very good.
No, because then it basically breaks, in my opinion, breaks any sense of any sense of suspension of disbelief when even the single grain of believability there is just tossed to the wayside. You can only suspend the disbelief so far.
All right. Well, that would bring us to the end of our lore and discussion section this week. Let's move into our next commercial break. Our next commercial is from Sunset Sarsaparilla, or rather Sunrise Sarsaparilla. Hope you enjoy, and we'll be back shortly.
Gee, Grandpa, what's that swell-looking stuff you're drinking?
Well, my boy, it's the cool, refreshing taste of Sunrise Sarsaparilla. Unlike Sparkle Cola, Sunrise always stays smooth and carbonated, and there's no risk of death by radiation poisoning.
Jeepers, that's keen!
You said it, Grass Stain.
Remember, kids, sip your Sunrise Sarsaparilla to keep you shining, sharp, and swell. It's the official drink of the Junior Steel Rangers.
Sunshine, you'll be mine, Sunrise Sarsaparilla.
Hello, and welcome back to Post-Apoc Horse Talk. Thank you for being so patient with us, and we now see your question. So, Waak, how about you partially answer this one?
Sure.
Alright, so the question is, what are key things that are done differently in current tabletop campaigns than the previous ones?
I see this is referring to the campaign that had been running for the last 3 years, and my current one where PG and Calendars also players. And what I am doing differently in that is that in the first campaign, as I was the story GM, we had an idea that the campaign would be a bit more open, a bit more open-worldy, and the main quest would be a bit, or you wouldn't say there would not be a main quest. In the end, it didn't work out that well because there was no framework to then lead the players to the conclusion of the campaign, which towards the end of it was a bit of a hassle to do it. So in my current campaign, I have a framework of what happens during the campaign, and I emphasize the word framework. It is open for changes what the players might do or might not be able to do. Just a word of warning for you, Gallant and BG.
Okay. Are there any further questions? Yes?
No new
maybe?
further questions in the chat so far, so let's give them some time to gather and collect their thoughts.
Perhaps you could do your best to answer the one that was intended for SourCherry.
I can do something, but I will mention that this particular book was also mentioned to me just today, so I'm slightly in the dark, but I can answer somewhat. BG, what was the question?
It was, what is the Z book that is coming soon going to cover as far as world building is concerned?
Now, this won't be the final thing because I am a bit more in the dark, but I can think that it involves the so-called Zebralands and anything nearby it, because we had in our head that the Minotaur states or Minotaur Islands are also nearby the Zebraland, so that might also be added to the book itself. And when it comes to the zebra itself, there would be the centaurs or central lands. And possibly a few societies of zebras and how they have evolved after the world ended. Similarly, in a way, how Equestria has somewhat devolved into different feuding tribes in a way, the zebras very likely would have done the same. So don't expect a massive Caesar's Legion to appear. At least that is what I would imagine it to go. One massive enemy is more like a end game campaign type of thing. I don't have anything more to add to that, and honestly, if you want a bit more in depth and also opinions that or the knowledge that very likely will override my opinion and my thoughts, you can ask Sour.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone else in the time? Seems not.
Not so far.
We'll give it another 4 minutes. If not, we'll just end on the hour.
Gotcha.
Sounds like
there
a
will
plan.
be a short announcement before we close up, though.
Oh, I noticed one question, which is not that in line with the lore discussion, but Tierney Kelly asks, what were your most cringiest characters?
Okay, that's an interesting question, yeah. BG, I don't think you've had many characters, so your answer will probably be the briefest.
Well, I guess my cringiest character would be playing as one of my old pony sodas as an earth pony named Riverbed Ransom, who was a bit, well, she was a bit overeager to cuddle the enemies, such as passing a seduction check on a tentacle monster that appeared, To which point the GM had the tentacle monster get so flustered that it disappeared back into the waters from which it came.
Oh boy.
Wow.
Yes.
How would...
No, that's...
Well, while we're still on this topic of this, so I'm trying to think back of what was the cringiest character I ever made, and I don't know. I can't think of any particular characters, though someone in the chat almost certainly is going to mention one of them.
We'll see.
At least from my perspective, probably the most cringiest character I ever played. I don't know. I really can't put a finger to any one character, I'll be honest. What about you, Waak?
Well, I'm going to go and once more prove how old I am, because the most cringy characters I made can be the very first pony RPG character I ever made in the very first Fallout Equestria PNP system ever made.
Oh boy.
He was pretty much a soldier boy which evolved in time to be some odd mix between Team Fortress 2's soldier and heavy, so pretty much talking a Russian accent. And while trying to be the leader, he pretty much never appeared to be the much of a leading type, or was very abrasive as being a leader. And I still can recall how when there was another character in the group who was pretty much modeled after Team Fortress 2 Medic, K-Cat's player character then immediately began to ship the two as the pretty much.
Oh, you played with K-Cat?
Yes, and with Somber for one session.
Oh no.
I left the group afterwards because it was horrendous time as a Finnish person playing on American time zones, you know. In short, I wasted most of my nights. Don't do that, kids.
Okay.
I would say that's my answer, pretty much.
There is one other question, I believe that was in there. How would you deal with an enemy that cannot die?
Very much depends what brings it back to life, because that is the core question that has to be answered before you can deal with an entity like that. If it is some sort of magical artifact that brings it back to life, then probably, very likely, you have to kill that said you have to destroy said artifact first before ditching that.
It makes them mortal, where then you can defeat them.
Yes. If it's some other supernatural source that cannot be, or that is not chained into a specific artifact, then that's a completely different matter. Because then you pretty much have to go out of your way and see a much more stronger supernatural entity or power to dissolve that threat.
I tend to not like using supernatural entities in my campaigns to solve your problems.
Yeah. Also because this particular version, it doesn't give an outright answer what has to be done to the unbeatable threat, while an artifact that is clearly visible and always worn by the threat, that you immediately figure out, oh, I have to get that off. How do I do that? You immediately go thinking that,
Thank you, Nexus. You just love just kicking a man in the shins.
Thankfully, just the shins.
I mean, I thought of an interesting way that you can make a lich that's basically unkillable. You make your phylactery a singular gold coin.
Oh.
And then you put that coin in a bank that you own.
Oh, I see. However, I'm going to go a bit rules lawyer here, just a smidgen. Because I recall reading from the D&D's monster guide that the phylactery acts not only as the source of its power, but also as a source from where it consumes the souls it uses to power itself. So it has to have some sort of empty void within it. It has to be a container of some sort. So in this case, if you want to have a coin, itself. Yeah, it could be the bank vault itself, or it can be this coin you mentioned, but the lich has bored a hole in it, basically make it hollow, and then disguise it to look like a proper coin.
Oh, and then could thread a string to it and wear it around him or something, I guess.
No. The best liches never carry their phylactery with them. You never, ever have your phylactery with you when you are a lich. You put it somewhere where no one's going to think to look.
Yeah, because because if they destroy the phylactery, you are dead.
When they stop filleting, right.
Pretty much. And it's also your so-called respawn position. So you want it somewhere that nobody can find and is safe.
Or, like I suggested, you hide it somewhere where it's incredibly mundane and no one will think that this is your phylactery.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how big does the container have to be?
Give me a moment, actually.
Like, if it has to be a container of some description, all you have to do to get around that is just put a small dent into a coin. Technically, it's a container for a very tiny amount of water.
Hold on, I'm fetching my book. There we go. Where does it read? Phylactery is traditionally an amulet in the shape of a small box, but it can take form of any item possessing an interior space into which an arcane sigils of naming, binding, immortality, and dark magic are scribed in silver. So it doesn't specify the exact dimensions, so as long as you can scribble the tiniest runes within it, you're golden.
So you could have basically a very plain bent coin with silver writing on it, and that would work.
Yes,
because bending the coin would make it a container of some description, a very tiny amount of liquid, and you could quite easily put silver magic attach silver threading. That would be the words that you need for the spell.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. Or bended coin with the inscription on the outer rim that forms this particular.
And then to make it that no one ever thinks anything of it is you just cast an illusion on it with permanency to make it look like a regular old coin that's just bent.
Definitely, because liches tend to be powerful wizards, they definitely know permanency.
So, yeah, it's a coin. One of many thousands of coins that you can gather over your infinite lifespan.
So here's a free hint for all GMs: how to make your lich unkillable. Because some odd fucking peasant carries the coin.
Yeah, just put it in a bank and just give it to some fucking peasants. Like, literally just be a generous benefactor as a ghoul and just hand out coins by the thousands to the local peasantry. Here, use this money. I'll give it to you. And watch as the fucking horror on the faces of every single adventurer as they're trying to find
The moment they
coin
find
in a
that,
stack of coins that is spread far and wide.
Plus, you never know where the lich will respawn, so to speak, as the coin travels around from tavern to tavern.
Definitely.
Like, that coin will get so much fucking travel on it, it's not even... It's fucking silly. Especially if you're in, like, a...
Also, yeah, Nexus, that's a good idea also to make a break in a castle wall to be your fillet. All in all, you're just another break in the wall.
You've got to smash every single brick in this city to find my phylactery.
Oh, yeah, Lord. Yeah, that's basically like putting the strongest security for your password in the world.
It's a
it's visible.
It's a 64 gigabyte encryption that's also always changing.
Yeah, it's perfectly visible there, yes, but good luck finding the correct solution. Oh no.
Yeah, that's fine if you spawn on the inside of a wall. Like, you're the one who fucking built the fucking wall. You probably have a corridor on the inside of the wall. And you're a lich at the end of the day. You've got fucking time on your hands. If you spawn inside of a wall, oh no, I'll dig my way out of the wall. This is mighty unfortunate. This means I have to spend a century digging myself out of this wall. How unfortunate. Because as far as I'm aware, it does displace matter when you respawn.
Give me a moment. I'm actually checking that as well. Within days, a new body reforms next to the Lich's phylactery.
So it just reforms nearby, basically.
It basically forms nearby and completely anew. So as long as it's not basically in 6 feet under, you can place it anywhere.
Yeah, this seems like a foolproof plan. An adventure where you have to track down every fucking gold coin in the entirety of a kingdom, and every other kingdom, mind you, just to find the one this lich has decided to enchant.
Oh, that actually gives me the best idea for my upcoming campaign.
Like basically, I think the plot hook to this campaign is that this lich is not very good at magic. Like, he basically is the basicest bitch of fucking magic users when it comes to being a lich. Like, you could defeat him with like a low-level party. He's not very good at it. But the fact is he's smart, and he made his phylactery a coin.
Sure, I might not be the strongest of wizards, but god damn, I'm smart. You cannot just kill me, you know. My phylactery it's right here. It's right here. Oh, is it here? No, wait, it's over there.
Yes, he does. And, you know,
I got him as a constant pain.
Basically, I understand that you can basically just cast a spell in advance in D&D and have it cast on a certain criterion being met. So basically, you just have it basically the moment that you reform from your phylactery, you cast a powerful illusion over yourself to make yourself look like a person who's just stepped out of a dimension door.
Sounds a very solid plan for any lich that plans to go this route.
Like, we've already established that this particular lich is someone who's forward-thinking and has planning and decided to make the most difficult phylactery to be ever used.
Definitely, because lichers tend to be very intelligent wizards. However, they go mad due to the
Let's be fair.
the dangers associated.
What are the chances that they're going to be able to pass that law?
That's good. Nexus Concord just said that law is passed. Every legal coin must be either melted and reminted or have a hole punched in it, depending on which is enough to make a phylactery count as destroyed. I mean, at this point, that law can be passed, but then it comes to the enforcement of the rule.
And the fact is that you're asking a population of probably a few million to turn in all of their coins. Do you really think they're going to do that?
Yeah, they might. It just depends on... Most people might, if the exact danger is then told to them pretty well.
Like, this is almost as bad as the turnip law. Like, everyone would probably think the king had gone mad.
So I do say the break idea might be a bit more easier, because if you can establish that the lich used to be a ruler of a kingdom and had massive building projects, yeah, you're not just going to demolish an entire kingdom worth of houses.
I mean, there's like different ideas that could be done here, but suffice to say, let's move back to the original point here. How would you deal with an enemy that cannot die? Well, the way I would deal with an enemy that cannot die is not. Put them in a box, fill the box with concrete, then throw that box into a body of water.
Just make sure they are just incapable of really doing anything, and then it doesn't matter if they ain't dead.
They're not my problem solution.
Like you don't need to deal with the problem permanently to deal with the problem permanently. Or permanently enough that the heat death of the universe might come first.
Well, that's a fair point. I think we've developed enough on this particular talking point.
It's definitely evil sealed in a can problem, but evil sealed in a can is still evil sealed away, and is not a problem that I have to deal with anymore.
It's the future adventurous problem.
They can come up with a better solution, or the same one, I don't care.
You just created the infinite campaign solution. The same bad guy comes back because it cannot be killed, and it just seals away.
Stop locking me in a box! Not even that bad, please! Just stop putting me in a box!
Now it has some Monty Python vibes to it, because I don't want to go in the box. I'll be a good boy, just if I don't put me back in the box.
You locked him in the forever box. No. Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what they did to Discord, so just make a statue out of him.
No, let's please not take the Tia route of dealing with her problems.
The good old headcanon that Celestia's solution to problems is to just put them in or under a rock.
Or the moon.
Yes, which is also a big rock in that context.
Of all the solutions, you just make them grounded for a while.
Yeah.
He is really fucking shit at dealing with problems.
well, go figure. That's why she sends the main six after them all the time.
Like, I love her, and she's my favorite of the princesses, but god damn it, you're really bad at dealing with your problems.
You know, she's perfect CEO material because she knows how to delegate.
I mean, yeah.
Yep.
It's
Not
just
my
a shame that
problem.
her family members are not exactly as good at that topic.
Fair point.
But unless there's any more questions, I believe this is a good place to end it and to make an announcement. So, the announcement is that there will not be another episode of Post-Apoc Horse Talk in 2 weeks' time. We were going to basically call a short break over the Christmas period. There will be an episode being released on YouTube exclusively on the 25th of December, Christmas Day. It's going to be a discussion about how to have rewritten Fallout Equestria. We were going to try and have a number of guests that we've had on previously, ideally all of them, and have them discuss this around the table.
Sounds like a good plan.
But until then, this has been Post-Apoc Horse Talk with your hosts Gallant Aegis and BG. And our guests tonight have been SourCherry and Waak. And until next time, keep your eyes trained and your gun in its holster, because you never know what the wasteland brings. And have a good night.